Welcome to another episode of the One Life Podcast, week number 2 of a series called First Things First. Pastor Jerry, we talked about habits this week, and you kind of said jokingly, or I was supposed to ask, what are all of your bad habits that you just want to air out for everybody?
That's next week's conversation.
Okay.
The third message of this series will be breaking up with bad habits.
There we go.
So next week, a little cliffhanger.
There you go.
I'll be
You have to come back
more
next week.
transparent about all the bad things. And then somebody's joking on the walk over. She's like, you work too much. You have too much vision. Those are all the very Michael Scott of me.
Did you say last week the biting fingernails? Right?
Yeah, that was a
Isn't
thing. Yeah, for sure.
20 years, right?
I don't do it anymore, though. I think
Yeah.
I have pretty good fingernails now.
Yeah.
But my son,
Okay.
I think I've passed that trait to him. He's never seen me bite my fingernails. I was
Yeah.
over that, but he's a biter for sure. And
Interesting.
the other day, I'm like, Grayson, what are you doing? He's like, tastes good. I'm like, oh,
Ugh, tastes good.
bro,
That's terrible. Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, so this week we're going to dive into it, and we got some other things to talk about at the end. But it's obviously 21 days of prayer and fasting kicked off this week, and the sermon kind of led into that as well. So we're talking about small, little changes over time that eventually make a big difference,
That's
right? And
Yep.
so you hit on 3 things as we set goals for habits and different things. Make it really clear, make it simple, and make it known.
Yes.
Right. And so the make it really clear piece, you mentioned the 11 million sensory receptors, right? I thought this was mind blowing. Not only that there's 11 million, but then 10 million of them
Have to do with sight.
That is insane.
Well, I didn't say this at every service, but I mean, grocery stores know this. I mean, things that are at eye level of what you see sell 2 to 3 times better than anything above or below.
Wow.
So I'll walk home from Costco or come home from Costco, and Amanda's like, I didn't ask for any of this. What are you doing? And I'm like, I saw it. It looked amazing. That's the sensory receptor doing its job. That's how God created us and wired us. So it doesn't surprise us, right? That we're very visual people.
Yeah.
And so I would say it this way. I didn't necessarily unpack this in the message because it's just time, but this is what the podcast is for. So when you have the vision and the habits that you want to create in your life, like when it's clear, you have to write it down. So this is like a second point of that. Things that are written down, you have a greater chance of success. I think it's like over 30% higher than things that you're just thinking through. Like having it written down, like a vision statement on a whiteboard, in a journal, you have a 30% higher success rate of it not being written down. Why? Because you're a visual person. So they'll tell you this as an example, that if you want to like lose weight and be healthy with what you eat, if you journal, if you write down actually what you are eating, it reduces all the junk because you're actually not just putting it in your mouth. You're like, oh my goodness, I had this and I had this and I had this. It's the visual reminder of what you're doing. It's just the way God created us, these sensory receptors. So it's funny, a science professor attends our church, and she walked up to me after the second service and she's like, I love that sensory receptor talk, speaking my language. I'm like, oh, you're such a nerd. But it's so true.
Yeah.
Like the data is there. Like we're visual people, writing it down, making it very clear actually gives you a better chance to achieve the goals. And not just the vision piece, but it's the daily steps, the rhythms that you're putting into place.
Right. Yeah. You would feel a lot more confident writing chicken than Doritos 3 times on your list too.
No, exactly, right? But I mean, even to the point, like I have MyFitnessPal, so I do it through an app, but it's like, okay, a breakfast burrito. Did you put sour cream on there? And then just seeing, like a little tub of sour cream, just seeing how many calories and the fat content in there, like it makes you think, do I really need that? I like it,
right?
But do I really need it? I mean, that's true with everything. And the biggest thing for me though, where it trips me up, is like when I'm doing my salad and a little chicken on it. It's like, did you add dressing? Like how many times I want to lie because I just know all of the content of that dressing, like the ranch or even Italian, all the sugar that's in there. Yeah. But again, this is the visual part of it, like seeing it and not just like, well, it's not too bad, but actually, it changes the game. Yeah. Greater success. People that want to get healthier, if you write down what you eat, you use like a app. Yeah. A greater success. You have a greater chance of success by not writing it down.
So speaking of apps, you talked this week about. I'm assuming you're talking about Strava, right?
Yeah, that's the worst.
All right. So
I liked something that you did last week.
Thanks.
I got on there. I liked your walk.
Your example was like, oh, I ran 9 miles, and then somebody else ran 18, and I'm thinking like, this dude just liked a 1 mile walk with my kids. I'm like, what does he think I'm doing? Like, this is crazy.
There might be some judgment to that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
1 mile walk.
Yeah.
No, but part of
had a
it's
stroller too, but
that's fair. I didn't even see your time, so I have no idea like how fast or slow you went. But but I also think for me, like here's the visual part of it: is you're being conscious about working out.
Yeah.
You're being conscious about putting it in an app that can actually track it. So the thing that I like, again, I'm a visual person, is I want to make sure, is this January 2025, am I being more active than January 2024?
Yeah.
Dude, I do this with everything. I do this with the church, like the metrics. So end of the month, I'm going to get a printout. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at January 2024 and put them side by side. Like, are we seeing growth, more decisions for Jesus, more attendance, more baptisms? And you put them side by side, the visual piece of it actually helps you like keep track and keep you progressing. It's why, because God created us to be visual learners. So yeah, there's massive parts of that. So it is discouraging, I'm making it a joke, but here's the dilemma. There's people that come to our gym, work out with us, and they're just starting like the marathon training and running. And they've been hardcore for 6 months and they're already faster than I am. Now, I like to run. I run to stay fit, but I'm not like a marathoner. Like that's not my goal. But there's people that have actually put the work in. They've tracked everything. They're in Strava and they're seeing the results 6 months. And I would say a big part of that is because they can see it's not just, well, maybe I could run a marathon. No, they're actually tracking it and seeing it. So and all the data tells you that's true.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just trying to help you, like be helpful to our church. Like you have these goals. Like again, this is a perfect example. Budgeting. Well, I think we're on a budget. Was it written down? And the thing Amanda and I say, it doesn't exist if it's not written down.
Yeah.
So there's an app, every dollar, that's what we use as a couple. And every dollar that we spend goes into a category. And when you pull it up and you see it, like it begins to change your behavior and how you spend.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Those are all the spiritual lessons inside of God created us to be sensory receptors.
Yeah.
So let's take advantage. Let's use that for our good and not for our bad.
We have in the same Excel sheet our budgets from when we first got married.
Oh, I love that.
And Juliet will go back and look back like before we even had Hudson. Yeah. Like, man, our bills, this was so easy back then. I don't understand why.
Amanda and I joke about that. We'd have so much money if it wasn't for our kids.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's part of it. They're funny. Such a joy, such a gift.
It is funny though when you look, and this preaches, I guess, but it's like when you had less money and you're like, man, if I just had more money, I'd be able to do this.
Never.
Then you have more money now, like 7 years later, and you're like, I feel like we're at the same margin here.
I'll talk about this in a couple of weeks. It has nothing to do with how much money you make. It's how much you spend. If you can control your finances, like I know people that make, they don't make much, but they're living in such peace because they have so much margin because they figured it out. And then people that make a lot of money but spend every penny, like I believe this is what I teach and actually counsel people that come in for this. Show me your budget. Oh, we don't really have one. Then I know it's a mess. And we're just hoping at the end of the month, like, no, like if it's written down, you can see it. It changes the game. I didn't have time to like unpack that.
Yeah.
But I will talk more about that in week number 4 of just creating healthy financial habits in your life that actually sets you up.
Yeah.
Hey, for God to bless it,
right? But
also for you to build wealth.
It's good.
Which is God's plan for your life. Yeah.
All right. So the second one, to make it simple, I kept thinking, was it Dwight when he's like, what's the best advice you ever gave me in the office? He's like, keep it simple, stupid.
Oh yeah,
right?
KISS. Yeah,
yeah.
That's
like,
absolutely
changed my life forever. So like making it simple, I think this is a big part of it because I used to be kind of like that too. Of like, man, I'm just cold turkey, cut everything. We're going all the way, and then you're right. Like a few weeks in, you're like, this is not attainable. So talk a little bit about that from a spiritual side, like some simple spiritual goals and habits we can create.
Well, even like this is perfect segue into the 21 minutes for 21 days. Like it is purposely simple. I don't want this to be complicated. There's some churches that have been doing the 21 days for a long time, and they're like, it's an hour, 6 a.m. prayer service. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm always looking at, okay, I love the principle of what we're trying to do, but how do I get as many people as possible to do it? And how do I get it to where people can actually sustain this, not just for 21 days, but can build this habit for the entire year?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the goal of, okay, dumb it down. And that sounds like rude, but I'm trying to dumb it down that my 9-year-old, my youngest, can do this every day with us. And the 90-year-old that attends our church can do it too. And I just think like if we can create a system of that's simple, easy, effective, everybody will go on the journey and people will continue the process with us. So I would say it this way, right? Like that's the 21 minutes, 21 days, but a prayer, reading your Bible, that was the big part of like the keystone habit, engaging every day in God's word. Well, make it simple. Like don't get on the chronological Bible program and then you get to Leviticus and everybody fails, right? And not that that's not inspired, it's just complicated. So why would we do that? So again, simple, 5 verses a day, 10 verses a day, and a verse that you can engage with, like that you can meditate throughout the day and not just like, oh, I read it. What'd you read? I don't remember. Not helpful. And then I'd also say the translation is a big piece of that. A lot of people are like, I got to read the King James Version. No, like please don't. Not that that's not a great version, but like find something that's simple that you can understand. And maybe did I share this a couple of weeks ago? Like for Christmas, my son, Gianna, my oldest, actually bought Grayson the Gen Z Bible. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. The other day I walked reading, he's like, Dad, listen to this. Like, hey, yo, bro, in the beginning, God created and nothing was there. And it's just, but he loves it.
It has the entire Bible
the whole
translated?
Bible.
That's insane.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap. Like she went all out for him. Like I didn't, she's like, Gianna makes her own money, but like, she's like, I think he'd really like the Gen Z Bible.
That's
and
awesome.
I walk in there and he's reading it and we laugh because it's so Gen Z, but but I love that because it's simple.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and he's engaging with it.
Right.
So that's kind of the big keystone habits, I would say, of daily Bible reading, prayer. Do not overcomplicate this. Walking with Jesus is not complicated. And I didn't say that it's always easy, but I think professional Christians, myself included, we have made it for too many hoops to jump through. And I'm trying to remove all of that for this keystone habit to stick.
No, I like the idea that it is sustainable, right? It's a habit that, and I know there's a lot of churches that do the hour-long prayer service. I think our team is the most thankful that we're not.
We don't do that.
They're at 6 a.m.
Maybe
for
one
3
day we
weeks.
will. I'm not saying that we won't, but I'm just, how do we sustain it?
Right.
And I would say it this way, like I've preached this before for newer Christians. They'll ask, like, what should I do? And I just call it like the first 15. So 5 minutes in God's word, 5 minutes in prayer, and turn on a worship song for 5 minutes. And man, 15 minutes a day, you doing that consistently will change your life. And here's the truth. All of us can do that. I don't have 15 minutes. Yeah, you do. Like we'll get rid of some of the bad habits that maybe you're staying up too late, like you're not sleeping to be healthy. Like we'll talk about that next week, but you have margin to do at least 15. And I would argue you have margin to do 21.
Yeah.
You just have to want it.
Right.
So
that's good.
There you go.
All right. So the last one to make it known, this is where you kind of hit on the keystone habits more too, but the idea of making it known and not just blowing up social media with like, look what I'm doing for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Like well, I'm off. I love how people have to go, I'm fasting social media. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Or just don't write that. Just be off social media, right? It's true. It's just, that's just my pet peeve. There's nothing wrong with people doing that. It's just
everyone delete posts.
Exactly. It's just that. Oh, okay.
Pastor Jared said I can't do this. All right. So talk a little bit about that. Like who should be in the know for some of these things, and like a life group or different people. But how do you evaluate? Let's say somebody's trying to figure out like, I got habit 1, habit 2. These are the things I'm trying to do. Who are the people I should bring into this circle to help with accountability and ultimately like motivation to keep going?
I think if you're married, it has to be your spouse. I mean, the Bible says you're a team, you're a partner, someone that can walk the journey with you, that knows you better sometimes than you even know yourself. So one of the things, like Amanda and I have full permission that anytime we feel like, oh, there's a high level of stress around this, we can talk about it. So I would just say you have to bring, like, your spouse should be the number one, like, supporter of what you're trying to do. So, like, if you want to get healthy, like, there's no way, like, I would say it this way. If you're trying to get healthy and your spouse is on a completely different wavelength, you're not going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah.
You have to be lockstep of, like, here we go. Same thing with your finances.
Yeah.
You have to be lockstep. I mean, I would even say it this way, unequally yoked. And there's a lot of Christians, they might have the same faith, but they are so unequally yoked when it comes to all those different things. And then they wonder why, like, they're not seeing the progress because your number one person isn't in the same step with you. So number one, you have to be in agreement together as a married couple. That doesn't apply to everybody.
Yeah.
So I would say, okay, then who are the 1 to 2 people that can hold you accountable, that can know everything about you and love you anyway? That's the people that you need to bring in. Hopefully that's being done in our life groups of, hey, what are some of the things you're hoping, and where can we bring support? Where can we pray for you, encourage you? You need 2 or 3 people in your life. So for me, I have a couple pastors that hold me accountable with certain areas, bring them into that conversation. Chairman of our board, we're really close. We have, accountability conversations all the time. So there's just certain people. And then I kind of hit on this more so the last service because there was a little bit more time. You need to make it known to people that are ahead of you, like mentors that, let's just use a couple examples. Like my kids are preteen, so I need some people in my life that have older kids that love Jesus, love the church. Like, you've done something right. So can you speak into our family? People that have more of a net worth than us, right? I perceive, right? That are more successful in businesses. They lead massive organizations. I'm going to include them into my life because, A, you're already ahead of me in these areas. So I'm making it known, asking for advice, accountability, that type of thing. So those are the people that you need. I pray that really does happen in our life groups with people in our church. And not that you would even share it with your whole life group, but there's 1 or 2 people in your group that you can be honest with, vulnerable with. I was saying, hey, well, this year we're really hoping, we change the course of our finances, or, I hope I'm walking with Jesus more at the end of this year than, and man, I just want bringing you into that conversation. Would you walk that journey with me? 99% of the people will say yes because they love you and they want God's best for you. And then you just have to be discerning about the 1%, the crazy people that might use that against you.
Yeah, that's true.
But, yeah.
The 2 things I was thinking of, the one, my wife and I have never had a successful diet if we're not both doing it.
100%.
Because one of us is the first one to be like, Chick-fil-A sounds pretty good. Same thing with
Sounds
finances,
great.
right? Because you're like, let's be tighter with it. Chick-fil-A sounds really good. Or it's just right down the street. So the other thing is my brother-in-law is like my competition guy, I would say.
Yeah.
So like anytime we're weight loss or dieting or trying to get stronger, hitting the gym, like any of that stuff at all, it always works better if we're both competing against each other.
So good.
And so like my make it known to him is not just like for accountability, but it's like motivation of I know he's working. I don't know what it is about us, but we just are constantly competing.
That's a perfect example. So in Amanda's gym, like, she has a New Year's goal always. And people do this all throughout the year, but January, hey, it's paleo or it's a shred, like count your macros. The more people you get involved and you can see the chat, it's just the accountability of like, man, DJ's crushing this. I can't let him get too far ahead of me. You need that. Right. I think the healthy competition with that is really important.
We got to figure out a way to compete with our Bible reading.
Yeah, I don't know how you can figure out the system. You're a systems guy.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
So many points, I don't know, stars, awards.
But there has, so I do think part of this, there has to be a cool reward at the end, like make it worth it. So Amanda and I will be, we'll go back to this. Gabby, our youngest, was born premature, spent some time in the NICU. So we had some pretty big medical bills. And so there was a season where like, okay, we're going to hardcore lock in and we're going to pay off this medical bill. And then once we pay this off, Man and I, we like nice restaurants. So we're not going to do any of that for maybe a year while we pay this off. But as soon as that's off, we're going to the best, and we were living in Indianapolis, we're going to the best restaurant downtown Indianapolis. Like, there is a reward. Olive Garden, no, absolutely not. Like, there is a reward waiting for us. I think there is some incentive to that of, hey man, like you worked hard.
Right.
Celebrate.
Yeah.
The problem is, and this is where people get in, there's some trouble. They have like one good week, like, well, I deserve it.
Hmm.
And it totally falls off the train.
Right.
And so instead of like the daily steps over and you're going to be in the valley of despair, it's going to be tough. But this is where character is built. I haven't even gotten to that part of like the conversation yet, but the valley of despair is where God builds your character. That's what he was doing with David, but he's doing with Joseph, with Ruth. In that season is where they were learning to be all that God was calling them to be. It doesn't happen like this.
Yeah.
It always happens with the valley of despair, the growth curve.
It's good.
Yeah, hope that's helping
Yeah.
some people today, encouraging them.
All right, so give us you kind of hinted at it at the beginning, but give us what's to come this week, week number 3, first things first.
So it's hard because I think a lot of us, we want to instill good habits, but there are bad habits that it's like, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So how do we break up with some of the bad habits that keep us from fully moving forward? That's going to be this weekend's conversation. I'm excited about that. And then week 4 and 5, I want to be really practical and knowing some of the things that people are dealing with. Okay, how do we create good financial habits and rhythms that will sustain us the whole year? So we'll talk about giving and generosity and tithing, but everything else that goes in like budget, it'll be very practical. And then the last week of this series, we'll talk about our relationship with like the church. How do we use our gifts, creating the habits, consistency, and all of that. So yeah, I'm really excited about the series to come. And then we're into the book of Ruth, which man, I've been planning and preparing that for a couple months and excited for that new season.
I don't think, I could ask my dad this, but I don't think I've ever sat through a series through the book of Ruth.
Right on.
In 30 years of church attendance.
Did you ever sit through a series in the book of Song of Solomon?
No.
Were you here for that?
Yeah, that was my welcome to Trinity Church at the time.
Oh, was that right?
It's like, man, this place gets down.
This is impressive. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it'll be it is a relationship series. It's going to be good. I'm excited for that series.
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the couple other things we want to hit on, talk about our church's response just with everything going on in California now.
Even like it looks like this is going to be another week that Southern California is just going to be going through it. And this is not like political or anything. And when it comes to tragedy, everybody's pointing fingers at who's at fault. And I would just say, man, like right now, like I was talking to a pastor, he's in San Diego this morning, and we were just chatting back and forth. And I'm like, hey, do you know of any other churches that are on the ground floor doing some really good things? And he's just like, man, it's honestly so early like into the process. We don't know yet. We don't even know what all the needs are going to be, except they're going to be massive.
Yeah.
So the church, the church that we're like kind of like partnering with is Believe Church in Calabasas. Aaron Lindsay is his name. It's a church plant. I think 3 years ago they started. They're running, like, I think, over 1,000, doing some really cool things. But they're partnering with Convoy of Hope, which is another partner of ours. And Convoy of Hope is using Believe Church as kind of like, hey, what are the immediate needs that people have? And how can we like meet them right there? And the thing I love about partnering, not just with Convoy of Hope or, again, nothing wrong with Red Cross, but having a church partnership, like the spiritual needs are being met too. So that was really important for us. So talking to our elders, our board, I'm like, hey man, in advance, let's go ahead and bless Convoy of Hope and Believe Church, and just believe God's blessed us. And I mean, I'd want somebody to do that for us if we were going through it. So in advance, on behalf of our people, we sent $10,000, and then we have a relief fund that people can give to you. And then again, 100% of that, anything above 10,000 that comes in, we'll send it back to Convoy of Hope and Believe Church. So that's, if you text relief to 45554 and just follow the prompts, got onto relief fund, and people are responding, and it's exciting to see our church have such a heart, because you come to these moments, you're like, what can we do? And there's not much physically we can do, but we can partner with brothers and sisters and provide immediate relief. So that's what we're doing.
Good deal. All right, well, we're excited to continue 21 days of prayer and fasting this week, next week, the week after. It's going to be an amazing experience.
And I would say this, I don't think I mentioned this, but we've had a record number of people text Devo.
Yeah.
And so every morning they're getting the link. We're really excited about that.
First morning, like 500 people all bam.
At one moment. There was some people, like I talked to, like, I'm not texting Devo because I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
All right.
So whether it's 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
8 a.m., or maybe it's 6 p.m., I can't encourage people enough just to go on this journey with us. And every day, allow one of our leaders just to read that scripture over you, give you that spiritual thought, and go create the habit.
Yeah.
And God will reward you for making that commitment. So that's my last 10%. Go for
Good
it.
deal.
Let God do some really cool things in your life.
I'm excited, like individually,
Yeah.
through 21 days of prayer, and even like for myself, for my family. But I love seeing like congregation corporately. Like, what does this look like all together?
Yeah.
It's just a cool
Here-
season
Here's
to be
a
in.
now I'm going to say this out loud 'cause I think people will be able to experience it. But every time in the last, I think this is our 4th year doing this, we came out of COVID and we created this rhythm.
Mhm.
The spiritual fervor, like even in worship, like
Mhm.
it's cranked up to another level.
Mhm.
If people are locked in every day, listening to worship music, praying, like they're coming Sunday and they're already like they're not depleted.
Yeah.
They're ready to worship. And then what's really cool for us this year, we're going to end it with a night of worship,
Yeah.
and that's going to like take it to the next level. And that's February 2nd.
Yeah.
That Sunday night. So that's how we'll end the fasting and the prayer time with a night of worship.
With some food trucks after too.
I can't wait.
There's nothing better than breaking a fast with a food truck.
What kind of food trucks do we have, though?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm a little worried. Actually, now that I think through, my stomach
Might be
not
lots
be ready for
of
that after 3
people
weeks.
having some heartburn that night. Yeah. Well, anyway.
Extra porta potties have been delivered.
We'll have a salad truck just for those that aren't quite
It's
ready.
a great idea,
Yeah,
actually.
you're welcome.
Yeah. We might need to cut this. I don't think porta potties is allowed to be in the podcast. I don't know. Let's see. It's not an easy transition, but here we go.
Hey,
The church is not
There it is.
a building we sit in. It's a movement we get to be a part of to help reach one more life for
let's
Jesus.
go.